of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello everyone, it's wonderful to have a full audience this evening. Welcome to our City Council meeting for August 1st, 2022. Thank you. A few quick reminders before we get started. We do have all of our council members and the mayor here in person, but we still have staff and public joining virtually, so I still am sort of toggling back and forth between my computer screen and here in real life, so just give me a second if I'm slow on the transition with some of our items. And just also a reminder that we have a light agenda tonight, but I am saying that and then it's going to last until midnight, but we do take breaks every 90 to 120 minutes between items. With that, we begin every meeting with an open comment period, and this is an opportunity to take testimony on any items that will not be having a public hearing later in the agenda. Each person has up to 4 minutes to speak for up to 20 minutes total. I do use a couple ways of keeping time, so don't worry if I need to interject myself and ask you to wrap it up. We encourage you to use your time wisely and in case others are wanting to speak on an item, since we do have limited time. And we also have people joining virtually and in person. So again, we'll sort of be going back and forth between who is online wanting to speak and who might be willing to speak here. We do have several people on our list this evening. Let's see. So I will be asking you to keep it concise if you are able, and I will keep you abreast of our time and ask if there are any considerations of council if we are nearing the end of our time. With that, we'll go ahead and open public comment. And I will invite Wes Lund up to speak.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate the opportunity again to speak before the City Council, as you gave me a chance to speak here 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And thank you again, because this is the way we should address each other in public forums, where we can meet face to face, not on Zoom meetings, not in a lockdown situation, not divided from each other by sunglasses and masks, although my eyes are light sensitive, so forgive me, I'm going to wear some sunglasses here for a moment tonight. The lights are bright. I had a great time with masks off, meeting Molly at the fairgrounds, the Olmsted County Fairgrounds. We had a great time interacting. It was a treasure, a delight to meet her outside of the formalities of a city council meeting, and two fantastic sons. I thank you for having for raising sons. That's to be commended. Thank you. And the conversations that we need to have should be on a public forum, on public microphones, where we can all be recorded for the things we're saying, not in secret or not with back channel communications, sort of with individuals making off-color slights and what on. But I did want to talk a little bit about the pledge. I think it's beautiful that we begin these meetings with a pledge. It's fitting that in a public building we pledge allegiance to the Republic, to the flag that represents the Republic it stands for. It's a symbol, but it's still important. And I think that that symbol should have been acknowledged at the Rochester Public Library, where a forum was held with elected officials present, with the public invited to attend in a public facility, paid for, organized by a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, a public setting, a public forum. The pledge is in order. When I attended libraries when I was a kid, I remember going to a Carnegie-funded library as a child. And it was a place of, it was a sort of a ritual to go to that library. And I could use the rest of my minute and 33 seconds talking about that. But a library is a special and sacred place. Way back in human history, we should say the pledge to the Republic when we're present in a library at a public event. Let me move on quickly. I spoke about the Olmsted County Fair briefly. We were told by the Rochester media that the CERT officials of the CERT quasi whatever they are, unlicensed, unbonded, uncertified law enforcement persons who patrol in public. We were told that they would be present. Nevertheless, there was a fiasco at the Olmsted County Fair involving, 40 to 60 individuals fighting in the streets on 3rd Avenue behind the fairgrounds. The Rochester bubble media hasn't addressed any of those situations. I really haven't seen it addressed in the press at all. I'm not surprised. 4 ambulances responded and an unknown number of squad cars. I really don't know. And I didn't want to go out there. I didn't want to see it. Although I drove by it somewhat after work. So as chief magistrate of the city of Rochester, it's totally within the purview of the mayor to decide. My time's up.
You have
Oh,
final comment quickly.
there it goes. 0. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone online who would like to make a comment? You are welcome to use the raise hand function or press *9. Seeing no one, we'll move on to Ken Baerg. Baerg, remind me how to say your last name. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome back. Go ahead.
Thanks.
You have 4 minutes.
Perfect. Expedite. I'm just going to look down the whole time. Sorry. So I'm here because I attended the Park Board meeting in July, and Park Board member Richard Dale made a statement that he identified as a fact from a William Shaughnessy letter that outlined huge expenses and losses to the city regarding 125 Live. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to address those letters, as that I believe was also added to part of the agenda for tonight. I think it's reasonable to assume that many people aren't aware of the history that went into becoming what is 125 Live and the expansion of the rec center, starting with Rochester Swim Incorporated's lack of involvement in the referendum and bonding process. Senior Citizen Services Incorporated, along with city representatives, lobbied the state capitol to get lawmakers to vote in favor of allowing a sales tax extension for the referendum on the ballot, then allowing Rochester voters to decide if our community seniors were worth a tax extension that built 125 Live, extended rec center, and also built a warm water pool. This has recently become such a hot topic that the 125 Live executive director has had the opportunity to visit with numerous authorities from that time, and they all agreed that the pool was originally designed for use to be 125 Live, shared with the rec center for youth programming. 2 were quoted as to saying the Squib Club was meant to use it as a warm-up pool during large swim events, as it's outlined in the 2015 agreement. This would allow for that 28 days of swim events scheduled each calendar year to go off without a hitch or any complication regarding the use of warm water pool. Rochester Swim Incorporated doesn't understand that the agreement that you'll be voting on today isn't just about the pool, but it's about the entire mission, the services provided, programming, the inclusivity, and the work done in our community over the past 6 years. 125 is here to ensure that the pool is used, and based on our use of it, we've been very successful in keeping that pool full. As far as our mission that was blasted in the letter as being a subsidized fitness center, I'd like to share that we're nearly 4,700 members as of today, and of that 4,700, 3,339, or 71% of them, receive financial support from 125 Live, and this support provides a fee deficit of exceeding $40,000 each month. And we do this as part of our nonprofit city partnership, and we receive help because we help the community by breaking down barriers to improve access to social, educational, and wellness services. And 125 Live does lose more than $500,000 each year by helping low-income Rochester seniors have better access to holistic wellness programs and services. These numbers don't include other free services like free falls prevention, public presentations, nonprofit rental support, and a lot more. We just added our newest program in July, where we were able to serve about 500 free meals to Rochester seniors. And we've also had 1,000 visits in July to our 125 Live food pantry. The average age of those who receive assistance is 72 years, and their average income for many of them reported as low as $1,133 per month. As related to the agreement, and we get into the other stuff with, skip to a couple spots, sorry. And so just wanted to address and clarify the numbers used in the Shaughnessy letters. He states the city has an annual loss of $172,000. To run up a bill that substantial would be essentially 125 Live leasing full-day access of the warm water pool from open until closed with no other interruptions. That would be a $180,000 fee. So I crunched the numbers over and over again, and I could not in any way get to $172,000 in losses. I could be wrong, but it's just what I did. So But one of the other things that's a little more particular regarding that letter, as it's related as facts, as shared by the park board member, is that 125 Live pays absolutely nothing. And my cheeky moment for today is, if this Rochester Swim Incorporated is in charge of financing and accounting for the Park and Rec Department, who do I talk to about our monthly bills regarding using the 50-meter pool? I have the receipt for the invoice for May, and we continue to pay for certain parts as part of the agreement that will be outlined in today. We also installed into the warm water
Time
pool
to wrap up.
$7,000 in $7,000 in acoustic panels, $5,000 in accessible doors, and about $2,000 in equipment shared by everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baerg. All right, is there anyone online who would like to make a comment? *9 or raise hand function. Seeing no one, we'll go back to our list here, and I have Barb Styles.
Yes, in the last city council meeting, it was discussed that children needed a warm water pool to swim in. I ran into the mayor at Thursdays on First, and I asked her about that, and she said, that's the handicapped children, because it's too much of a shock for them to be in a cold water pool. And I do not know anyone at 125 that would disagree with that. I also would like you, I don't know, I believe you each got a map or a schedule of our pool time. And you'll have to realize that we have tried to yield as much as possible for what was asked of us. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the rec center has the pool from 10:30 to 11:30. Monday through Thursday, they have it from 4 to 8. And we have shared pool time on Saturday and Sunday from 11:30 to 12:15. I play water volleyball. We get out of the pool so that the rec center can come in and use it, and it's dead. There is nobody in there. Nobody's coming in and using the pool at these times. So what's the problem? That's what I want to know. Also, I just truly believe that if each and every one of us direct our comments to the people, the appropriate people involved, that this may be the answer to the problem. Thank you.
Styles. All right, I have anyone who would like to speak online? Use *9 or raise hand function. Seeing no one, we'll move on to Gayle Madison. Come on up. Please introduce yourself. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, City Council. Thank you, Mayor. I can't think of any other place I'd rather be, actually. But anyway, I do want to bring up a few things, and that is my husband and I chose to live in this community and have found it to be a very nice place to live over the past 6-8 years. The thing that I'm encountering, and I want to actually kind of direct some of it to Mayor Norton, is how do we build community trust? And with our government officials and some of the things that I've encountered over the past couple of years, especially since COVID, and I want to, Sean Palmer, you're my ward district, or whatever you call it, and we came out with the mask policy. To the audience and those viewing online, the justification for that keeps arising. Initially, it was Mayo needs to operate at 90%. It wasn't a medical issue, and it was, well, you can go into establishments and don't worry about, and Mayor Norton said the same thing, you can go into establishments and say, you have a medical condition, you don't have to wear a mask. Well, you don't want to play that game. But I want to go back to community trust, fast forward a little bit to when things were starting to catch on a little bit more through this COVID thing. I was out of town most of the time with my business, so lucky Rochester, I'm in town. And what escalated throughout COVID has been the lack of trust in the community with our government officials and those are to represent us. And I mean that by example, Mayor Norton had a Facebook account that she has hijacked and says it's her own. Now, she has censored. I have spoken to Michael Spindler Craig a number of times. The gist of me coming up here is, who does the city attorney represent? I asked for Mayor Norton's public calendar. She's been in office 3.5 years, was a representative before that, has never published a calendar until I brought that up. Couple that with, I'm told it's not a statute in this state of Minnesota that is required to keep meeting minutes. Fine, well, and good. But do you think it's a good policy that when she's going over to Germany, representing us with the Council of whatever, Europe, and the Germans that come over here, or Walls that's going to be in town, that we know as taxpayers how we're being represented? Well, when I asked for the calendar, I was told she mixed her personal schedule with the public calendar. It took weeks till I could get the calendar. And that leads me to, because it took weeks, she was allowed to scrub it. Who did oversight? When I asked for a copy of the calendar for the past maybe 12 months, I wanted it in a certain format. They said, nope, you can't do that. We're going to have to make you pay for it. Ms. Shawn Rogers, spent 10 hours, and I don't know what IT spent, on scrubbing her calendar. What did Mayor Norton remove from the calendar? Why don't we have meeting minutes from everything that she represents us for? And I would think that as a public, everybody in this room, online, would be interested on how our tax money is being spent. Does Michael Spindler-Craig represent Mayor Norton? Because he spent 45 minutes on the phone with me telling me, you can't have it in the format you want. Now, I would think that it would have taken 5 minutes, if that, to get me in the format. I work in IT. Not a divine revelation there. I took it to Office 365. I can drop those calendars in seconds. They want to charge me as a taxpayer and her malfeasance with commingling her own personal calendar, scrubbing it, and that Mr. Spindler-Craig, does he represent City Council or does he represent Mayor Norton personally? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madison. All right, is there anyone online who would like to comment? Seeing no one, let me just double check on time here. We are at 14 minutes. We have 3 speakers left, so if we could do about 2 minutes apiece, we could keep it under 20. Is that agreeable? All right, Micah Johnson, please step on up. It doesn't have to be exactly 2 minutes, but around that.
Micah Johnson, boy, I wish I had something heavy to hit you guys with. Wow, I'm feeling like I'm really bringing up the rear here. I'm just applying for a special event permit on September 17th, just letting you know I'm here in case there's any questions. Sometimes when you write stuff down, it doesn't always translate into being super clear. One little point of clarity, I'm 45, my fiance's son is 9, and my folks are 75. Most of the guests are going to be in those age brackets, so it's sorry to disappoint. It's not going to be a super raucous party. But then one other thing is, since it's September 17th, I think next week, I'm going to be bringing a resolution to you guys to make sure there's good weather on September 17th. You guys can do that, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Fine. So I just want to make sure that happens, and thank you very much. If you have questions, I'm here.
Congrats.
Thank you, Johnson. All right, I have a Nathan Humphrey. And as close to 2 minutes as you can keep it. Thank you.
I'm just here to speak on the addition that is going in my neighborhood. We were here 2 weeks ago to talk to the committee about some issues that we had happened in the past with water flow. So I don't know how much you guys will dip into it tonight, but we were given certain assurances, and we just want to make sure that they come through on those. So thank you.
Can you tell us what the subject of your card, or can I see it quick? Or if you'd like to see it. It's a plat. So it's going to be a public hearing item.
Is that the first?
I'm just letting you know it's a public hearing item, so we'll actually have each item come up for a public hearing, so you don't have to speak now. It'll come up, and then you can ask your questions during the public hearing.
Is it G1, Ridgeview Manor?
Yeah.
Okay.
G1 or G2.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
G1.
When we have public hearings, which will be pretty quickly in the agenda, we have a chance to speak again to that item. So if the applicant speaks, you have a chance to speak after the applicant, and then they can respond directly to your questions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
What was the subject?
Let's keep going.
Yeah, G1. All right, then I have a Shirley Jennison.
I'm here for the same thing.
Okay, so again, you can speak at G1. All right, is there anyone else? All right, good job, everyone, on time. Thank you so much. With that, we'll close the public comment period and officially call the meeting to order. And Clerk Giesler, please call the roll.
Councilmember Keene.
Here.
Councilmember Bransford.
Here.
Councilmember Campion.
Here.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Here.
Councilmember Palmer.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis.
Here.
Council President Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Norton.
Present. All right, thank you, everyone. And I will turn it over to Administrator Allison Zelms to do her report.
Thank you, Council President, Mayor, Council members, members of the public. We always start this off by sharing what our customer service principles are of respect, integrity, safety, and excellence. And so with safety and excellence in mind, I have a few things to share. The first is that tomorrow is Night to Unite here in Rochester, Olmsted County. So there will be a number of officers and sheriffs and fire department and other teammates and candidates and elected officials around town at different hosted Night to Unite parties around Rochester and Olmsted County. So just thanks to neighbors who have agreed to host those, and great opportunity for neighbors to get together. We have quite a number of teammates that will be coming out to meet with community. So just noting those. And then also our fire department, Rochester Fire Department, has started a new opportunity for folks to stay safe and help themselves. So it's an opportunity to be ready in case fire does need to show up at your home, either for medical or fire response. You can go to our website and look for this new service where it's the Community Connect, so you can fill out information about your home. So if you ever get a response, we know if you have animals, we know if different parts of your home where you might be sleeping. Whatever you feel comfortable filling out, that would help us to be able to better serve you if you ever need an emergency response from the fire department. So just sharing that. The direct link for those who have a pen ready is www.communityconnect.io/info/MN-Rochester. So we recommend you just go to our website, rochestermn.gov, and look for that. And that's all I have.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Over to Mayor Norton.
Thanks. I don't have any proclamations this evening. I'm sure you'll all be disappointed that I don't have anything to read to you, but just a couple things that have happened recently. A week ago, the Miracle Field restoration event was held. It was really nice. That's in one of our parks out by Essex behind Watson Fields, and it's lovely. And it was there was a cops badges and I don't even know what it was called, but the cops played. Yeah, the cops played with some of the folks, and then there was the actual ribbon cutting, which was a really nice event. So that happened. I thought I would also mention Council President Carlson and I had an opportunity for the last couple of weeks, twice now, to speak with the RISE program folks, the RISE Scholars. That's a NAACP and Mayo Clinic program. They're looking at healthcare and other careers, but we had an opportunity to talk to them about city government, which was really nice. And I think Councilmember Carlson talked about her personal work as well, which I think was really nice. I did just also want to say I just came this afternoon from KTTC, who had an event for Chuck Sibley. And those of you that know Chuck Sibley know that he has worked at KTTC for a few years. And he's their cameraman. And so today they celebrated, this was his actual day of his 50th anniversary for working for KTTC, which is pretty remarkable. So they had an event for him, a surprise party, and I got to go and honor him. And that's quite a lengthy time to be at one organization. So that was pretty nice. We just had the RDA downtown stakeholder appreciation event. Councilmember Keene joined me over there briefly between our two meetings. And I thought I would mention that the Sandy Keith Award was given to Sean and Michelle Fagan from Studio 324 for their outstanding service, which was really a nice recognition of them. And also, you know, the downtown area has been very activated all summer long, and I'm sure you've all been to some of the events, but even just this last weekend, there was a Festival of Colors, the night market, Thursdays downtown. It's just been activated continually, and it's really been a joyful place. And I'll just tell you, as mayor, we have had 4 times this year a booth set up at Thursdays downtown. And it does my soul good to listen to Rochester residents and Mayo Clinic patients who come through and stop at the booth and talk about their experiences in our community and how much they love the downtown. And they usually have an opportunity to ask, your experience at Mayo good, of course, it is, but also the response from community members in Rochester and how well taken care of they feel while they're here and embraced by the compassionate treatment they get of people in the community. So, if any of you have time to come spend a little bit of time down there, some of you have, I encourage you to do that. It really is it's like a different view of our community that we don't often get to see. So I thought I'd mention that. And lastly, a week or so ago, the city and county presented at House America. As you might remember, we have a joint partnership with House America to try to get a couple of affordable housing units built in the next year. And our city, Taryn Edens from the city, and Dave Dunn, and I presented. I just did most of the introduction. They did the heavy presenting. 2 cities across the country on an online presentation. So they did a really terrific job, and I just wanted to give a shout out to our staff, Taryn Edens, who did a really great job with Dave Dunn, talking about how we're really focusing on homeless housing. So that's really all I have. It's a busy time in the summer, as you all know. That doesn't stop in my office either. So we just keep busy, and a lot of pride in our community. So thanks.
Thank you for that, Mayor. All right, we'll move on to approving the order of the agenda. I haven't been informed of any changes unless I missed something.
Move approval. Second, Campion.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to the consent agenda. Likewise, I haven't been informed of any items being pulled. Is there anything I missed? All right. Otherwise, I'll invite a motion to approve in block items F1 through F12.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second, Bransford.
Okay. And Councilmember Campion, any discussion?
Nope.
Any other? I just wanted to quickly commend the city and the cooperative purchasing. I think that is outstanding, and hopefully will be a really good agreement to get in place. That's all I have. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, we are moving on to our public hearings, and I go through the process, and then if those who were signed up to speak for public comment but didn't have a chance to, you're welcome to step back up and speak on the first item. So we provide an opportunity for our staff to give a brief introduction before we invite the applicant or representative of the applicant to speak for up to 10 minutes about the item. We then open the public hearing, and anyone from the public who would like to comment on the item has up to 5 minutes. We then close the public hearing. The applicant has a chance to respond to anything that's come up during the public hearing before we turn it over to council to ask any questions of staff or the applicant, and then move on to a motion and a discussion and a vote. With that, I will introduce item G1, which is the preliminary plat, number CD 2022-06 plat, to be known as Ridgeview Manor 7th. And I believe we have Desmond McGeough here to introduce the item. Mr. McGeough, are you there? Perfect. Go ahead.
Yes, I am. Thank you, President Carlson, members of the council. Good evening. Mayor Norton, good evening. This is a preliminary plat, which is the first step and the initial document authorizing the creation of a subdivision. As noted, this is Ridgeview Manor 7th, a proposed preliminary plat for subdividing 16 acres into 35 residential lots and 1 outlot. This is located in the far northwest corner of the city. This is the last phase associated with Ridgeview Manor. The density of this phase of development is 2.2 dwelling units per acre. Generally, lots range in size from 1/3 of an acre to 1/4 acre and are generally 75 to 85 feet in width. Outlot A in the northwest corner of the site is approximately 4 acres in size and will encompass a retention pond that will serve the on-site retention needs for the entire phase. Outlot A also provides accommodations for a multi-use trail that will connect the subdivision to the Douglas Trail to the south. At the Planning Commission meeting, nearby residents of the community brought up concerns regarding road condition, traffic volume, future grading, and concerns about future drainage due to previous basement damage from water seepage. The commission has added a condition of approval that requires the applicant to hold a neighborhood meeting prior to submitting a final plat application. Residents of the community are in the audience tonight to express those concerns. Staff and Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve the proposed preliminary plat subject to conditions 1 through 9. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions after the applicant provides their presentation. Thank you.
Mr. McGeough. Hold tight. We will get back to you. All right. Would the applicant or representative of the applicant like to speak? Chris Barber, I see you. Go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You guys should see a Google Earth view of the project.
We're working on it. Hold on.
No problem.
Do fit to window and then drag the side of the window. There you go. Yep.
All right, Mr. Barber, we are good to go. Go ahead. You have 10 minutes and we'll set the clock.
Perfect. So just a perspective of the project location, located in Northwest Rochester, just south of the New Dakota Middle School, west of 55th Avenue Northwest. The project will connect into the connect the 55th Avenue and Weatherstone Drive connection that has been missing. As Desmond pointed out, this is the last phase of the Ridgeview Manor project. During the Planning Commission, there were some concerns raised from some of the neighbors. A couple things that I just want to address regarding this particular project. There were some comments regarding existing conditions of which the project is not associated with, or with prior phases of the project that we won't be modifying in any way. One of the concerns was regarding the amount of trees that are being removed. And on the west-hand side of the project is where our stormwater pond is located. This area was actually enlarged from previous versions of the plan, removing residential units from that and decreasing our density. But we have also pulled in the stormwater pond. You can see the pond limits are outlined here in red. So we've pulled those away from the southerly boundary of the project to preserve as many of the trees as possible near the Douglas State Trail. There is some grading that will be proposed. I'll turn it on, but it's a little overwhelming. So there will be some minor grading in here and at our new connection to Douglas State Trail here. That'll come off of the project connection point. So regarding tree removal, it's as minimal as we possibly can. The grading that we are doing in here behind the residential units here, just to the east of our roadway connection, are due to maintaining no more than a 6-inch rise in the flood limits in the project area. So we needed to grade some additional conveyance areas, as in the existing condition, the site floods quite a bit. And the additional grading here, as well as the stormwater pond grading that we are doing, is to mitigate those potential increases in water surface elevations. All of those components, again, will be reviewed by city staff as part of our grading and drainage permit requirement. There were some concerns over on the east-hand side of the project as well regarding this existing detention facility. That detention facility is not being modified, adjusted in any way. In fact, with the extension of the 55th Avenue and Weatherstone connection, we'll actually be collecting some of that runoff in that area now through a curb and gutter storm drain system that will be fed through to our stormwater pond. Additionally, on the south side, we will be constructing a stormwater swale that will be along the southerly property line. So that will intercept flow from the project property and divert that to the west through to existing drainage easements. So any potential flows that are running into these neighborhoods here on Weatherstone Lane will no longer have that runoff from the project property. Similar condition on the north, but the gradient is opposite, and that's a farm field, so probably less concerned over regarding that. Otherwise, those are the items I wanted to discuss. We'd ask the council to approve the project with conditions 1 through 8. We would ask that you remove condition 9, as it's not a requirement of the project process and the city process for a project of this nature. And I'm here for any questions. And I believe Tony Bigelow is on the line as well.
All right, thank you. We will get back to you after the public hearing with any questions that come up.
Thank you.
And with that, we will open the public hearing and invite anyone who would like to speak on this item from the public to go ahead, step up to the podium and introduce yourself. And you have up to 5 minutes.
Pardon me?
You have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Shirley Jennison, and my husband and I, Joe, live at 5483 Weatherstone Drive. We're the first place just south of that existing pond. And we were the recipients of a great deal of runoff from, actually, and I don't think that Chris understands what we talked about at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, because we had this happen from the 22 acres of trees that were removed where the houses are going to go, not beyond that. We were at the Planning and Zoning meeting 5 years ago expressing concerns about additional traffic and removal of all the trees. Where was that water going to go? Well, it went in our basement, and we had to redo our whole basement. This was 2 years ago. We lived in our house for 10 years. Never had a problem. So we are extremely concerned about this whole thing, because I would never want anyone to have to go through that. And as I'm sure, hopefully all you know, that's not covered by insurance, and that's all out-of-pocket expenses. And, you know, they've excavated tons and tons of dirt out there. You know, this has been 5 years of them ripping out trees, you know, building up mounds of dirt. And if any of you have ever gone out there and looked at it, you know, where our property lies, everything comes that way. So this is a huge concern for us. And I mean, it's even having an effect on our fence, our chain link fence that we put in our property 12 years ago when we moved in there. You know, you shouldn't live in a house for 12 years and then have this happen. There was obviously a huge change in the water table. And at this time, and actually, Chris, back then, we were given your name, and I know we tried to get in touch with you, and I don't believe we ever got a call back, and my husband even went to WSB and ended up talking to somebody else, and they referred us to the city of Rochester and 2 gentlemen, because they said it wasn't their problem, that it was the city of Rochester's problem. So 2 gentlemen came out, and they said, well, we can't explain this. So therefore, we still don't have an explanation why all of a sudden we had all this seepage in our basement. And it started on the north side of our house, you know, with which the pond is right there, because they looked to see like if we had bubbling in our yard, because they said, well, then maybe it was from the pond. Well, we didn't. But through this process, the water table has changed, and it caused a real problem for us. You know, and we just want to make sure. We were assured that they were supposed to, that they would have meetings with the neighborhood. We really want to push to get those meetings going. We want somebody out there to look at this project. I know on the City and Planning Committee, there were 3 members that were interested in coming out there. Actually 2, because one of the individuals had already been out there. and looked at it and said she doesn't even know how they can develop out there. So there's lots of concerns for us. And like I said, I don't want anybody else to have to go through this. When you build a new house, you don't want to have to redo half of it 10 years later and with no explanation. And we didn't know where else to go. So anyway, I appreciate your time and listening, but it definitely is a great concern out there. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Can we go back to the previous item on the overhead?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you. So when the map comes up, my property is directly in the middle.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get
Billy,
them
can
on
you
G1.
scroll back? Thank you.
And Chris was speaking about two waterways, existing waterways. Yes, perfect. So I've got the goofy lot at the bottom of that subdivision. One of the two waterways comes directly through the middle of my yard, and I'm pretty concerned about that, given the difference in grade from the top of the hill coming down towards my property. I'm really concerned about what kind of water issue I may have in the future, just because it's probably about 40 yards away from my house, and that's a lot of water to come through there. So I just want to reaffirm that we are going to have these meetings, or communication at least with the developer or the survey company, and just make sure that proper steps are taken to protect all of those houses along. I think there's 6 of them, 6 of us there. So
are you on Weatherstone Lane?
Lane, yep.
Okay, so you're 5598?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, correct. So that's just thinking about the future.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Please introduce yourself, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Mike Rucky. I live about 3 houses down from the Jensens. I'm on 549 Weatherstone Drive, and when they did redo that pond or that area of the development, there was some change. They sorted their basement with the water, but I have pictures of the siding of my house where the basement area has rock board going from the siding down, and there's several areas where that rock board actually snapped. I have pictures from 2016 where it was flush against the house, and then in 2019 where it was starting to buckle. So, and that's when they started doing the redevelopment of that area, which must be my house was sinking a little bit, causing that rock board to snap. Even with the change in the weather to winter and all that, if the house was built before theirs, and then once the development started, that started to snap and is now completely snapped in half and broke off, there has to be some shifting with a water table or something causing that. And my fence posts are still pulling in. I replaced some of them, put more cement last year, and they've still started to bend in. So something in that area has changed a little bit, but I just want to show my concern for the neighborhood and any of the new developments, again, that are going in, if that water table has changed at all. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? If you're joining virtually, a reminder that you can use the *9 or raise hand function. And anyone else in person? Hearing and seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and invite the applicant to have 5 minutes. Mr. Barber or Mr. Bigelow, would you like to respond to any of the comments?
Yeah, I can respond to a couple of them. This is Chris Barber. Regarding the lot at the end of Weatherstone Lane, there is an existing drainage easement at the back end of that lot. And as part of our requirements to obtain our grading and drainage plan, we have to show a no-rise, no more than 6-inch increase in water surface elevations through that area. Our current modeling in that area achieves that condition. and the stormwater currently is running from the project site into the neighborhood uncontrolled, and there will be a stormwater ditch in that area to control and convey stormwater through that drainage easement. Additionally, with the construction of the new roadways, subsurface drains will be installed per City of Rochester Public Works standards on either side of the roadway, which will help control some subsurface water. But ultimately, subsurface water is in general difficult to control. The improvements we are making should help alleviate those concerns. Regarding the contact, I haven't received any contact since the last planning commission, so I apologize if somebody tried to reach out to me since that meeting. I feel free to try to connect with me again, and I can get any of your more detailed answers to questions, concerns addressed as best as possible.
I'd like to speak.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Bigelow.
Hi, Tony Bigelow, BBB Development. This is the first time I've heard some of these stories, and it concerns me, and I don't know what caused it. You know, the water table shifted. I do not know that. And I don't like condition number 9, but I am willing to meet with the people, and I could set that up and take the notes. And technical questions, I'd like to have Chris there, but if I could speak with the people beforehand, maybe visit their homes, look at some things, and get a feel, because I've never really walked around on their property side. And so I am fine with condition 9, and I will try to address it the best of my ability as a developer, because we want to be good neighbors.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bigelow. Any final comments from either you, Mr. Barber, or Mr. Bigelow, before we shift into questions from council?
No.
All right.
Nothing else from me, but I'll be available if council has questions.
All right, well, we will open it up to questions to either staff or the applicant. Go ahead, Mr. Keene.
Yeah, I want to address this to staff. We're doing a preliminary plat, but I want to understand how much our stormwater team has been engaged. Is this something that at the preliminary plat that we really do all of the stormwater management planning, or is this something that more work is to come from the city side?
Good evening. This is Dylan from Public Works. Mayor, President, council members, I'll take this question about stormwater. Typically on a preliminary plat, we would look at the utilities and the layout. We wouldn't get into the level of detail that they're already showing. You know, they're showing the different grading and stormwater treatment. But this is part of a larger development. We have a larger stormwater component to some regional facilities we're doing in Northwest Rochester upstream of here. So our team has actually been in contact with Chris and his team and Tony and their team just to talk through all of this and begin looking at the modeling ahead of time. So we've already begun to review that, and we're comfortable with what's being shown. They are taking all the stormwater, routing it westerly, picking it up and going to a new stormwater facility as part of the subdivision. So we've done more than we would normally do for this project.
Okay, in that same light, I want to understand that the homes are built to the east side and the retention pond is to the west. Is that consistent with the topography there, or is that being done for other reasons?
Yeah, this site, it actually kind of falls off down towards where the Douglas Trail is, so it would be consistent. There's probably some nuances to that, though, you know, which I think the team here from WSB could answer in detail.
I think I did hear some things about tiling leading towards the new retention pond. Is that accurate, or is that all natural flow?
Well, that's our city standard. So behind curb, we put in subdrain that's approximately 4 feet deep, which picks up groundwater. It helps to not only pick up some groundwater, but it protects our roadways and so that the water doesn't get underneath our roadways and saturate it. And as we know, with our freeze-thaw cycles in Minnesota, that's not good. So that's part of our standard. It connects to the storm system at the catch basins, and it then ultimately would end up in the pond.
Thank you. I have a question for, I guess, for our legal team, but we have this condition 9 that was put on by our planning and zoning. Is there any recommendation that we should or should not do something like that?
Councilmember Keene, council members, Mayor Norton, it's fine. We'll do our best to act consistent with that condition.
Thank you.
All right, we have several other questions. So Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. I appreciated seeing the grading report. I guess I have concerns about this as well. We've continued to add developments to this city that take down one of our best sources of stormwater management, mature trees.
And make sure there's a question.
Yep. And we're engineering pads. How many of these home sites will have engineered pads on this the 7th edition here? I guess that's a question for
Mr. Barber.
Yeah, probably Mr. Barber.
All 35 lots will require grading to some level to substantiate home construction. About a dozen or so of those have already been completed as a part of the prior grading and drainage plan that was approved with the Ridgeview Manor 6th edition and the interim grading that occurred in this area. The grading in this area also is part of that is required due to the interim stockpiles that were placed on this lot. So when you're looking at the existing conditions, it looks a lot worse than what it really was in the original native conditions because of the nature of those stockpiles.
Sure, that's understandable. My question, which may have gotten buried in my comment, I apologize, I'll ask it again. Will any of these homes have engineered pads?
Yeah, I did answer that question. All 35 of them do. About a dozen of them already are graded in that manner.
Okay, I misunderstood. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, Mayor Norton.
I think what I have is a what if question, given the comments that we heard from the public. And Mr. Bigelow, I appreciated you saying you would come out and talk to the group, and I want you to know there was head nodding because you can't witness that maybe from where you are, that there seemed to be an appreciation for that comment. I heard the terms modeling and difficult to control as part of this conversation. What if, as some of the members have mentioned, everything was done according to the rules that they are given, and yet the houses are being affected? What is the what if? Whose responsibility is it if the what if something goes wrong?
Mr. Dombrowski, or is that a city staff question or a developer question?
I can take that. Obviously, the what if we're seeing some unique circumstances, I mean, we always encourage people to let us know. We do have a team that's within our environmental services that this is their expertise in dealing with grading and stormwater and erosion control. So we would have to do some additional investigation in order to kind of understand what's occurring out there. I guess I can't speak to the issue specifically just hearing these comments tonight. Yeah, if there was some future scenario, we'd have to do some investigation and potential analysis. I will say, as part of this project, they are going to need to submit their final grading plan and their stormwater management plan. And while we've gone through the preliminary work with them to review the models, we're still going to have to review all of that again and make sure it meets all of our ordinances and standards before we approve it.
Okay. Councilmember Palmer.
Mr. Dombrowski, I got a couple questions for you. If they have a neighborhood meeting under number 9, would one of your staff members be able to attend that meeting so they can listen and reassure some questions?
Yeah, we can make sure that someone from Public Works is at that meeting.
Okay. The other thing would be, prior to giving them a CO for the home, do you check and make sure that the grading is certified to meet the plan that they have submitted?
We have inspection that's occurring throughout the course of the project. We aren't doing a final survey of every contour on the entire subdivision. We're doing spot checks at the lot corners to ensure that they're conforming with the grading plan. And that's how we would catch it if it doesn't. In the past, when this didn't occur, and I'm talking 15 plus years ago or more, the challenge is if you don't check one lot, it can really perpetuate the problem as it would drift over to neighboring lots if someone doesn't get it right. So that's why it's important that we're out there watching it during construction.
And the plans that are submitted are certified by an engineer, and then that's their responsibility to survey that they're installed properly. Is that correct?
We don't have a requirement. Obviously, you know, it needs to get built, so it's on the contractor. It's on the team that's out there watching the project, the utilities going in, the street being graded, the rest of the grading that occurs. These drainage ways are important that we've talked about tonight within the drainage easement. So,
okay, you had mentioned
we're out there with oversight.
Okay, you mentioned subsurface draining 4 feet deep. Are they allowed to hook up their sump baskets to that?
Yeah, that's what we have those there for people's homes to connect to our subdrain as well.
And just kind of a question here is I understand the neighbors when I hear should be, could be, it kind of does not set well with me. This is a scientific 99.5% that this will be graded correctly. Is that a good assumption?
We can't confirm that unless we do a full-blown survey at the end of every project. So that's why we have to do that spot check where it's important at the different corners on the lot, looking at those drainage ways to ensure that it's graded per the grading plan. You know, we would have to change things to require that on either the developer or something that, you know, we make a city policy out of, and it's not currently in our work plan.
And one last question. My understanding is that they're putting in another retention pond. That should help the gradient of water in that area, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's what they're required to do is control the rate of runoff from their site to be no more than what it is today. So in addition to the water quality treatment that needs to occur both to our city standards, but also our state standards through the MPCA permit.
Would that include the 7 lots that have already been graded?
Which ones are you referring to?
I thought you said there are 12 lots that happen.
Is it 12 lots? I thought there were 7 lots that had already graded, is what Mr. Bigelow had said. They're part of the.
Oh, the interim grading that occurred. Yes, this all falls within that. That's all part of their design, thinking about the added impervious surface from those lots and all the additional lots with the roofs and driveways and everything else will be added to this subdivision.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
All right, Councilmember Campion.
Yeah, a couple of additional questions. So I've been looking at the overhead pictometry from the area from 2015 and then back to 2021, which is the newest that we have. It looks like there's some topology changes to the drainage pond to the north, but that was anticipated as it filled permanently. Is that correct? I just asked because in the 2016 or 2015 picture, which may be taken in 2014, there's like a land bridge in the middle of it that seems to have disappeared when I go to the 2021 picture. I just want to make sure we didn't do any modification to the retention pond in that time.
And you're referring to which pond, Councilman?
To the north of the, it's to the north of 5483 Weatherstone Drive on the what would be the east side of the future extension of the roadway.
I would have to check with our stormwater team to see if anything had changed to that facility in the time period that you're referring to. I guess unless the Tony or Mr. Barber know anything differently here tonight.
So I have
I can.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say I could speak to that. I wasn't the engineer of record for that project, but the area that you're referring to, Councilman Campion, is where the stormwater pond for Ridgeview Manor 6 was constructed. So that existing facility was expanded.
Okay. So back to Mr. Dombrowski, the other thing I'm hearing is these subdrain system we have, and I know of historic failures of subdrains that sound eerily familiar to this, where we get a blockage from calcium buildup that then causes like changing to how fast or how quickly it can drain. I know that the systems I'm referencing are in kind of older parts of Northwest Rochester, but is there similar concerns with these systems? Do we know that they're draining in this area?
We have had that occur. We did change the subdrain design over the past. It was before my time. I've been here for 7 years, but even prior to myself coming to the city, they used to do a deep subdrain system out in the middle of the roadway, and we've had some issues with those systems. We probably, though, I would have to check with the team. I'm sure we have had some. The one thing we're doing, though, is they're out doing routine maintenance, checking on those systems, much more of a robust program, just as a result of what we've dealt with in other areas of the community. So they're out inspecting those systems regularly for those sort of issues. But you're right, it has happened in the past, and that was more from a lack of maintenance and oversight.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested in if we could just confirm that, or can you confirm that this has the 4-foot subdrain over, I think it was an 8?
Yeah, this would, our new standard, which has been a while now, is 4 feet, and so you can't gravity drain into it. You have to actually pump into it from your basement.
Okay.
Via the sump pump.
Okay, that fixes one of the problems. Yeah, I know we had calcium infiltration in a few of these systems that was causing some significant problems, but okay, I'm gonna leave my questions there, I think.
Okay, Councilmember Bransford.
Yeah, I'm curious about this notion that one of the speakers had of clear-cut loss of trees, and Councilmember Kirkpatrick I've mentioned it as well. Why were those trees cut down? Were they cut down at the behest of a developer, or were they cut down at the behest of the city, and why so far in advance to any construction?
I'm not certain if that was for myself, but not knowing exactly which trees they're referring to, I would have to make the assumption that it was from a previous subdivision that, as part of their grading, they needed to remove and clear and grub trees from the area.
Yeah, I guess my only response to that would be when we put Ridgeview Manor 6 in 2016, the only trees that would have been taken out would be where the stormwater pond is. You know, if any are in the middle of a future right of way, a street, obviously they come home or come out, or in the middle of a building pad. But in this case, there weren't a lot of trees where the single family lots are, but I think where the existing stormwater pond is, they did take trees out of there. And I don't remember how many.
Okay, thank you.
I just,
do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just on that line of comment, like there were a significant amount of trees taken out of here, because I remember this project coming up, and Ridgeview Drive Northwest, where it intersects 55th Avenue Northwest. I think what happened was they were developing that and, you know, efficient to just take the swale out because they thought they would be developing the next set that were going basically between 5518 on Ridgeview Drive and the homes that are on the Weatherstone Circle there. There was, I mean, there's several acres, well, maybe 3 acres, I would guess, of kind of brush land there. But they're not like the trees that you see around the Douglas Trail. Like they were, I mean, they're kind of brush trees along the farmland here. So I guess I don't want to reference a bunch of descriptions, but there was clearly, if you look at the 2015 overhead and then you look at the 2021 overhead, there's been a bunch of field work done here. So it, you know, something changed. So I totally buy the idea that in the interim, there could have been substantial changes to the drainage pattern. I think the question that the neighborhood is asking is, does the proposal mitigate the changes that caused a negative effect on them, or does it exacerbate the changes? So sorry, I can save that for further comment.
Well, and just to that point, it sounds like, Mr. Barber, you said that the development will actually improve as it will change from an uncontrolled to controlled water flow. Am I correct? Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct.
All right. Thank you for that. Councilmember Dennis, did you have a question?
Yeah, for staff or the developer as well, I guess. So it seems that there is a lot of concerns that are unmet, answers from the community that is going to be impacting their homes. What is the time frame of this project? Could it be pushed back so that we could have some more community meetings first to get some of these questions answered and have a confident neighborhood that would have all their concerns? Because I remember I just heard that some of these concerns have not been vocalized or heard by the developers yet. So if we push this back, like say to another council meeting, would that impact the development? How would that impact the development? If I'm wording that correctly. Like if
as a developer, I Tony Bigelow here. Say as a developer, I don't know if more time and pushing back the next meeting would help. I mean, I think we can get these answers fairly quickly. I do think when we build roads and storm sewers and ponds, we do intercept a lot of water, and we're going to control that water where it may have been uncontrolled before. I've been doing this for 22 years, and that's usually always the case. So I don't know that more time is going to help us. I think we can find these answers rather quickly and have our meeting.
But so I guess I'm not trying to reiterate, but I feel there is not confidence in the community with how it's going to be impacting their homes, and I don't know. I just feel that maybe if we tabled it to a certain date, that maybe we could have more meetings prior, so that all these little, not little, huge concerns can be addressed.
Can we hold off on that and let Mr. Yetzer speak, and then we'll consider a motion before we really get into discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Yetzer.
Good evening, council members. Just want to confirm that you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Just a friendly reminder, keep in mind this is a preliminary plat, so this would be back before you for a final plat before they could move forward with the project. So I would just encourage the council to think about, of course you have the option to continue, but I would encourage the council to think about that was sort of the intent behind condition number 9, was to work through some of those items while allowing the process to progress towards that final plat, which would be back in front of you. Thanks.
All right, Councilmember Keene, did you have a final question? Otherwise, we're ready for a motion.
Yeah, well, again, my question was more of a comment off of Councilmember Dennis said. This is a preliminary plat, and the approved grading and draining plan is really with the final plat. So I think that's what we're working towards, and I think that's why these things are coming up right now. This is the purpose of having a preliminary to get these items out there. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
Move approval with 9 conditions.
Second, Palmer.
All right, Councilmember Campion, go ahead.
So I've biked this area hundreds of times. Like I go by, I biked it when heavy rain comes in. I've walked this neighborhood dozens of times. I'm positive of it. It's a beautiful area, and I definitely hear your concerns, because my biggest fear in owning a home is frankly having water in that home. And so I totally get it, having done $10,000 worth of renovation in my own basement because of a water infiltration problem. So no one up here, well, maybe there are others that are also sensitive. I'm extremely sensitive to the arguments about water. And I know that we have a team that I've taken around Northwest Rochester probably 24 times that I've had to have them come out. And the Public Works Department does do a really good job of investigating these when we get them brought up. I'm glad to hear you brought it forward tonight. I will say, like, I've looked at the data. The trees are already gone. Like, we're not going to be able to replace those in the way they were naturally there. So I think if you look at the next best mitigation we can give you is probably getting the curb and gutter there and getting some of this other drainage pond built, because I think that that's going to start to protect the neighborhood from some of those flows. Like, I know our team does a good job of reviewing the engineering data. I think you heard them demur in exactly the right way, because we've also had contractors that don't always follow the drainage plan as closely as possible. I'm glad to see Tony Bigelow on the line with engineer and to hear this concerns tonight, because now I know they're going to put extra effort into making sure that's done correctly, knowing that you guys are going to be watching it, knowing that our public works team is going to be watching it, and that our sewer and water teams are going to be watching it. It's complicated, but also just looking at what is proposed here, they have the right things in place that I think you should leave here feeling the most possible confidence that you can, given that there's some uncertainty anytime something changes around you. I'm sorry you had to deal with it. I think we're going to continue to ask them to meet with you to make sure that whatever they can do to augment their design to make sure it's protective of your property is good. I appreciate my colleagues asking really insightful questions. If it continues to be a problem, if there continue to be concerns, I'll make myself available whenever we have the meeting with the developer here to be there to make sure you guys get your answers. But it is something I think in terms of preliminary evaluation, we have a pretty strict set of what we can view. They're under the same requirements we'd have at every other developer, and we expect them to do the right thing by you as neighbors. So that's kind of where it's at, and I think that's why I'm pretty comfortable moving forward tonight and kind of setting the expectation for them to come back and meet with you. I said 9 conditions, correct? I just want the record to reflect I say 9 conditions. Okay.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Campion. Just quickly, really appreciate you coming here, sharing these concerns. It's helpful for all of us to hear in public and hold ourselves collectively accountable to making sure that we're meeting the expectations that we have as a city. So thank you to Mr. Bigelow, too, for reinstating that 9th condition. Councilmember Bransford.
This is really less about the plat, but maybe more of a general comment about development in these kinds of situations.
Keep it relevant, please.
Yep, it's relevant. Well, they clear cut a lot of trees long before they likely needed to, and I see that as a cautionary tale here. So just going forward in the future, I think maybe they need to look a little bit more carefully at removal of trees and the consequences, because here it was pretty significant. So I'm okay with going forward with the preliminary plat for nearly everything that Mr. Campion said. He said it beautifully. But I wanted to add that I think that we really need to be very careful in situations like that, that removal of trees doesn't cause an ecological issue like a house sinking. So please.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Dennis?
Yeah, so what I'm a little bit worried about is that as things are moving on, the more we invest in our time and resources, more likely it's harder to back down, from things, and checks and balances might not be, it's hard. So I'm not going to make a motion because I trust Councilmember Campion. He knows his word really thoroughly, but I feel I would like to state that I hope that the developers would prioritize the last condition and do that first before all the other conditions, so that if there are some issues that are not seen, that can be addressed with the residents immediately, and then they have time to bring it up to their council member or any of us on council, so that we have a heads up on how to to ask the right questions for the final vote. So I'm not going to make a motion, but I'm just for the developers to hear that I hope that the last condition is done first. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmer, I'm sorry I missed you. Go ahead. Yeah. It's a tough life.
First of all, I'd like to, what Mr. Campion said is right. We don't want any of that to happen. I think the condition number 9, having Public Works there, will be very helpful. They can have communications, and I have a lot of faith in our Public Works Department. Things have improved greatly in the last 10 years as far as water control and checking on lots, and that's why I asked those questions to get confirmation that would be happening. And the subsurface drainage will be helpful, and they have redesigned it to work much in a better way. So I feel confident in that. And I appreciate Mr. Bigelow wanting to meet with the neighbors and working through this. They've developed in Rochester for a long time, and I have trust that he'll do the right thing also.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Kirkpatrick?
Thank you. Well, I'm going to kind of be Debbie Downer here. I wouldn't have approved this in the beginning, and I'm against it now, although I very much appreciate you, Mr. Bigelow, making sure that the 9th condition is remaining here, because this is such a critical piece to have these minutes added into the plat so that 10 years, 15 years down the road, there will be a record of these conversations. I personally have helped homeowners design landscapes with engineered pads. I understand their pain. I see what they go through. I see how grading plans are not followed and they are signed off on. There's a subdivision in Southeast Rochester that has significant issues ongoing, similar situation to this. We as a city who claims to be a city of health with sustainability and resiliency at the fore cannot continue to build where there are so many applied, engineered, and designed mechanisms that will subsequently fail as the future of climate change continues. I keep hearing the word control. We are not in control. Mother Nature is. And I'm not trying to sound like a mega tree hugger here, but this is going to continue as we move out into other areas of our community. Our land cannot support the level of development that we continue to try to squeeze into these places. I do appreciate Mr. Campion's comments as well. I appreciate staff. I've had conversations with staff about these issues. I'm concerned about the people downstream, and I know that staff is doing everything they can, but we really need to shift our mindset. Land does not need to be developed, every square inch of it. Thank you.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick. Okay, any final comments? Let's go ahead and vote on the motion to approve with 9 conditions. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1 with Councilmember Kirkpatrick voting nay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining for that item. We will move on to item G2, which is also a public hearing, and it's final plat number CD 2022-022 plat to be known as Northern Hills Commercial Park 3rd. And I believe it's back to you, Mr. McGeough.
Thank you, President Carlson, members of the council. Good evening once again. Yes, this is Northern Hills Commercial Park 3rd, which is essentially just an adjustment of a lot line associated with 2 commercial lots. And the whole site contains 1.62 acres. The applicant is proposing to shift the shared property line between the 2 lots 88 feet to the north. Site development for this property was approved in December 2021 for a 3,271 square foot credit union building, which is nearing completion. There is a previously developed internal access easement lane that provides both properties access on the west side of lot 1 and 2. And staff is recommending approval of this application subject to conditions 1 and 2 listed in the staff report. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer questions the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. McGeough. Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to speak on this item? Mr. McGeough, are we expecting an applicant to speak? Unclear? I don't see anyone raising their hand, and there's one in the audience. Oh, there is. Okay. Got it. Mr. Jeff Rolson, go ahead and introduce yourself, and you have 10 minutes. I should have said unmute yourself before you introduce yourself.
We don't hear you.
He's not talking. I can see you've unmuted yourself, but we do not hear you.
I think happens we're just moving to 80 feet.
Is your microphone turned on?
All right.
We still cannot hear you.
I would suggest we open the public hearing and see if we come back.
I agree.
Give it one more minute because he may want to respond to comments during the public hearing. Oh, well,
it's fine.
Actually, that's fine. We will, Mr. Rolfson, we will come back to you after the public hearing, and then you'll have a chance to introduce and respond all at once. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item, G2? Is there anyone joining virtually who would like to speak on item G2? Use the raise hand function or press *9. There's no one who would like to speak. We'll close the public hearing. Mr. Rolfson, how are you doing?
Ready for a motion?
Are there any questions from my colleagues of staff? All right, we're ready for a motion.
I think he's going to be just fine. He didn't have his microphone working. Move approval, 2 conditions.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Campion, you have the floor.
Nothing to add.
Any other discussion? It took longer to try to get him to speak than the whole item did. Okay.
I wasn't going to say
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to our third and final public hearing, Special District Amendment number CD 2022-001 SDA, to be known as 41st Street Plaza Arboretum Special District. And I think we have Mr. Caples here for this one. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, President Carlson.
Yes, I can
you hear me? Thank you. Members of the Council, Mayor Norton, good evening. My name is Ed Caples with the Community Development Department, and I am bringing forward this application. The applicant proposes a 1,500 square foot kombucha brewing within the existing commercial building located at 4181 31st Avenue Northwest. This application would not replace the existing commercial gym currently located within the property. Instead, the kombucha brewing would occupy the existing tenant space. I'd like to stress that the approval of this application would not permit other light industrial uses within the site. Any alteration to the site or expansion of the kombucha brewing would require further approvals. Page 170 of the review packet outlines the rationale behind community development support. Community development has determined that the proposed change is consistent with the intent of the special district, the approved general development plan, and the land use plan. The Planning Commission and Community Development team are recommending approval of this application. That does conclude my presentation, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions the council may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Caples. We'll get back to you if there are questions. Would the applicant or representative of the applicant like to speak? Come on up. Introduce yourself, and you have up to 10 minutes.
Hello, Council and Mayor. My name is Matt Jewison. I own that building, and I'm a co-owner with Mark Martinchek on the Kawabucha Kombucha Brewing Company. Ward 3, though, man, it's crazy today, huh? Let's go. It's all you. Yeah, so the idea is just to this existing local building, we just want to put a small kombucha brewery in there. What we do currently is we sell at the farmers market, and we're trying to scale this up a little bit. Kombucha, if you're unfamiliar with it, is just a fermented probiotic tea. It's kind of a healthy drink to kind of repopulate your gut microbiome. And it's also just a kind of a nice, fun alternative drink made locally. The plan would be to hopefully source it into maybe local coffee shops, breweries, food co-op, places like that. But I think it would bring good commerce to Rochester. I believe it would be well received, as we're already fairly well received at the farmers market. And I think that it's a nice, healthy alternative to, say if you go to a brewery, there's, I'm sure if you have gone to breweries, everybody likes to go to breweries, it's Minnesota, right? But there's always kombuchas there, and to have a local one, I think means a lot to the people that are consuming that. I don't have anything else as far as I can think. But
So we'll open the public hearing, close it, and then if there are questions, you're welcome to step back up. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, we will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Anyone joining virtually, use the raise hand function or press *9. Final call. All right, we'll close the public hearing and invite any questions from my colleagues to staff or our applicant. Hearing none, is there a motion?
I guess I don't have I had some questions today through the day and worked through the staff that I was worried about the active agents in Kombucha, but I received an excellent update from Public Works talking about the work they have done with this business to make sure that we don't have any trouble at our water plant. So again, I think all the bases have been covered. Didn't see it in the packet, but I wanted to get into the record that work is being done to make sure to protect other city assets.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Campion?
I'd like to move approval of the special district amendment.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Campion, over to you.
The format of the meetings no longer lets me suggest that I might move to disapprove something to start the conversation. So I was going to rib them a little bit about the number of times Mr. Jewson's been back for modifications around this particular building. But generally, the response to the neighborhood has been really good neighbor. I happen to live about 4 blocks from this, so I drive by it constantly and see how busy it is. I think we have a revival of the kind of commercial happening over in that area, which is much needed because we've had a lot of retail space office space that's been sitting empty for quite some time. So super optimistic about that. Kind of appreciate that this is a kind of creative use. It's a little bit unique. We have a special district there, so I kind of appreciate you running through the gauntlet again to get this kind of formally done in the right way. As Councilmember Keene pointed out, it does have some concerns for our wastewater plant, so it's good that you're working with them to make sure we keep on the up and up. Otherwise, I think it's a great way to kind of meet in the middle with a business that wants to grow, and we have capacity to do that. So I think I'd like to see us move forward.
Wonderful. Councilmember Keene?
Yeah, I'm in support of this, although I take seriously when we're doing like industrial zoning so close to R1, R2X neighborhoods. So I think since it's a special district, this is a unique approval. But again, I want to make sure that idea of that like easy zoning changes, we do have to protect the neighbors from those sort of changes. Thank you.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
I agree with everything that Mr. Campion and Mr. Keene have said. I think those are great. And I also just want to applaud local food. Whoop, whoop. And why does my son keep killing his scobies?
Really?
Okay. Well, thank you for going through the process. Sounds great. Really exciting to sort of support a local business in this particular way. So great work. Any final comments? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations. All right. That is it for our public hearings. And we only have one item left, but would we like to take a quick break? No? Okay. Let's take a quick, we'll be back at 8:35 on this blue clock, so about on the dot. And I know there are people anxiously waiting for this discussion, so I am pleased to turn it over to Heather Heyer to introduce our only item under reports and recommendations, the 1 to 5 Live Phase 3 operating agreement, after some really good community discussion. So go ahead, Ms. Heyer.
Thank you so much, Council President, Mayor, members
Recording
of Council.
in progress.
My name is Heather Heyer. I am a management analyst with the City Administration team. I am actually going to be pretty brief. I just have really one slide to go over with you tonight, which is talk about the updates we've made since we were last in front of Council on June 20th. So we did host a meeting on the 27th of June with 125 Live, the Swim Club, and RSI, and we identified 2 main items that needed to be addressed with the new operating agreement. The first being finding 2 hours on Saturday mornings for the swim club to conduct swim lessons. And then secondly, to hosting the need for hosting quarterly meetings with all recreation center tenants to review calendar of events and discuss operations. Those 2 items have been addressed in the amended agreement, and we have also removed a large section in Section 8 related to the use of the locker rooms, because the planned new locker rooms at the rec center will be complete before the need, before there's a swim meet that would need the additional space. So we did remove that large section. Additionally, we did get feedback from the park board on this item, and they didn't recommend any changes, so they were okay with it moving forward to you as it was. And we heard about a little bit the feedback we received from RSI and Dr. Shaughnessy. So that is in your packet as well. I did want to talk about one item in terms of gym space. There is no gym space that the senior center is using. I think that is primarily in reference to pickleball players, and this is on page 215 of your packet. Pickleball players have access through 2024 at no charge to play pickleball for 6.5 months of the year, and that's only a 2-hour time frame each day. So I wanted to point that slight nuance out. And then we're still really excited about the finishing out of that space in the lower level, designed to be a shared space. Accessible Rec would be using that space on a daily basis and some weekend time, and then 125 Live would be programming it outside of those times. And I'm here for questions now.
All right. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Palmer?
I have a couple questions. I'll just start out with that we do support 125 Live, and just to be clear on that. And we've been working on this for 3 years with the Oversight Committee, so this has been a long process. The unfinished space, what is the use going to be exactly?
So on page, let's see, it goes between 214 and 215 of the packet. Accessible Rec will use it from 2 to 6, 3 days a week, and 2 to 8:30, 4 days a week? No, 3 days a week as well.
Well, for 30 and a half hours a
Yep,
week.
yep.
I get that, but 125 Live, it has a separate door and a separate entrance. It's not been used yet. It's unfinished shelf space. So what is the use, what is the need for that space?
They have programming that's occurring in the mornings where they're overbooked. They're turning people away from some of the classes that they're hosting upstairs. I know specifically cardio drumming gets very busy. So they definitely have the need for additional space to host a lot of those types of classes. So I can't speak to every hour of the day what they need exactly, but their busiest time of the day from 9 to 11, they do have needs for additional programming space for fitness classes and other things as well.
And we're not committed yet, but we think we'll up to $400,000. Is that the drop dead?
Correct. Yeah.
So if it's $600,000, what are we going to do?
I believe we would come back to council if those items were wildly outside of our estimates.
Okay. And so being on the Oversight Committee, we have the Arts Center, we've got Civic Theater, we got RDA. We do a 1-year deal with them, and every year they come to us. When we had COVID, we had to cut back a little bit. Is there any reason why we don't just have a 1-year deal to finance?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's certainly some benefit in being able to sit and live in an agreement for a while to make sure we're working out any kinks and come back and see if there's additional negotiations that need to happen. This took 3 years to get to work through, as you mentioned earlier. So I think allowing it to live it out a little and see what we need to work on from there would be beneficial.
Well, I look at it from a consistency perspective, and if something changes, if we're in a recession and things change and we have to cut back, it just seems that if we're doing a 5-year deal, I mean, I support a 1-year deal all the time. I have no problem with that. But for me, that consistency. The other question for you is, from a consistency perspective of paying fees, if we gave them an extra $100,000 and said, you use that to pay for your gym time and your pool time, would that be a problem?
We would have to double check with the 125 Live team and their executive board if they would be in support of that.
And my rationale for that is that rec center right now is about a $500,000 deficit. And as the city council, we vote that we support seniors, and we support seniors. And we gave them extra $100,000 to pay for that. It seems to me to be more consistent with what we do with all the rest of the park and rec department stuff. Does that make sense to you?
I can see where you're taking that. Can you yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All we're really doing is an accounting twist. City council is saying $100,000 out of contingency we budget for next year. They pay for whatever they use for it. This should be a wash for them. But Park and Rec gets $100,000 for their budget. That is kind of my thought process is from a consistency perspective.
Administrator Zoms wants to weigh in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we would have to do a little bit more research on exactly what the costs are, what the rental fees are, how much would be used, what that would look like, as Heather has shared from the 125 Live Board's perspective of what that would mean for their entire financial situation. And I don't have in front of me how we operate the entire rec center, but there's a number of other users of the rec center, users of the other pool, users of this pool, potentially challenges with the number of hours available to the existing users that have been talked to within this agreement and others. But I do believe that we have a parks teammate here that might be able to speak to that. Many of our facilities, as we show during the budget, in most of the parks budget is funded through tax levy including portions of the rec center and other facilities and the significant number of trails and parks in general that we have in Rochester. So I don't know that we can equivocally say $100,000 would be like an equal offset for what might be taken on by parks to even schedule the pool or collect dollars, all of the different users that might be able to utilize the warm water pool that has lots of excitement with two very specific groups of users.
Well, and I guess my attitude would be is not to make it a hardship on 125 Live, but to cover their costs for whatever it was going to be. It's just an accounting for Park and Rec, because almost every program we have, I mean, the running club pays for the track, and the Miracle League pays for their field, and soccer pays for theirs. It's just a consistency thing in my mind. That's what I'm asking. I'm not trying to ask to whittle down their dollar amount. If it needs to be more, tell me what it needs to be, would be what I'd be comfortable on.
Thank you. Yes, and I think 100,000 would be sufficient. I think Dale McCamish and I spoke earlier today, and if we equated the math out on how we would charge them for the pool, it's roughly $5 an hour per lane. There's 4 lanes in the warm water pool, so it'd be between $70,000 and $80,000 a year. If we're talking about how many hours we're allocating to them in the agreement.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Keene.
I had a technical question just on the recommended adoption of resolution language in front of us. There's 125 Live building, but then there's a reference to Silver Lake Station, and I just want to make sure you talk to that and make sure we know what we're being asked for.
Perfect. Thank you for that question, Councilmember Keene. Yes, so there was initially with the accelerated tax investment resolution that got passed earlier in, I think, January or February of this year, we outlined either Silver Lake Station upgrades or 125 Live, and we had allocated $700,000 for that. So that's where this is getting split out, where we said approximately $400,000 to 125 Live, the remainder going to upgrades at Silver Lake Station.
No, I'm familiar with that. I just want to make sure, because it just seems to like be an appendage on there, and I think I do know where the money comes from. My second comment's just on, and it's not really a question, but this has been a long, complex sort of thing, and there's parts of it that I don't love. There's parts of it that I'd like to weigh in and say, why didn't you do this, or aren't you? But I think we're late for that, and I don't think that's our job here. I think the staff has gone off, and again, I have worked a little bit with like frustration with some of this stuff, but I appreciate what we went through to get to this point. And I think one thing I want to point out along with this is, this, we've talked earlier about there's different sort of contracts we have with Civic Theater, or that we have with 125, or with a group like the skate or the hockey club that helps run places for us. Each one are unique and have different sort of history backgrounds and cause us different sort of things. And one thing that's important to me on here is this idea that the second part of our thing is authorizing the lease agreement, which replaces the memorandum. And this is important to me, that we've got to modernize this relationship going forward. We're sharing space with a group that's activating space and providing great services for our community, leveraging city assets. But I think we've got to get on a better footing out in the out years. And I think that's one of the things the city staff was trying to work towards this. And it's one of the reasons I'm supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Keene. I did just want to add, as you point that out, Administrator Zelms does like to say frequently during outside agencies, it's not always apples to apples, it's sometimes apples to oranges, and that is definitely the case here. 125 Live is within a city facility that is shared with the rec center, and they have so many commonalities. It's a different nature of that relationship, I think, compared to the art center or the civic theater.
All right, Councilmember Campion?
So, first, the piece that I don't particularly like is...
And we don't have a motion.
Oh, okay. I'm going to move approval of the action requested.
Second.
Okay, back to you.
So, Councilmember Palmer is great for this. He will show up and he will talk down a line of logic, and to the point where I will no longer know what he's talking about. And I'm free to admit that. I'm sure there's a good concept there, but I would prefer not to do it tonight just because I don't understand all the mechanics, and I'd look to have staff make sure that we're whole on whatever kind of fiscal maneuver we want to pull there. The other part of this is kind of what Councilmember Keene got at. I've been skeptical all along of the acceleration plan of the parks funds because I feel like it is one of the few ways we can tie. The only way that the council can really tie future councils is by financially committing them to things, and this is a financial commitment. It's already decided. So when we make direction setting things about that, I want to be very explicit about it. Like I want it to be not like something that I pass something about what I think is a operating agreement, and then all of a sudden I find that there was an entanglement somewhere in there. And so at least it's called on the the request for council action. Going forward, I think we should just separate it. Like this is a separate thing. We're making a modification to the recommended allotment of these funds. All that being said, I said last time, like I had a very limited capacity for further trepidation about the agreement. Like we are getting an agreement. We have an agreement. This has been worked through. I've looked through it. I didn't see a whole lot of delta, but it was pretty similar to where we were at. I'm glad everyone got heard out. Let's move forward now, and we can adjust as we go if there's need be. But I think this is better than where we've been operating, which is kind of gray, and at least now we have some more definition around things. So I'm ready to move forward. I think this is good. Thanks for all the time you put into it.
Councilmember Bransford.
Yeah, thank you. So let me articulate this properly. So one of the joys and frustrations I've had at 125 Live has to do with the special needs community, AbleRec in particular. I've had really bad experiences and I've had really good experiences. But one of the things that I find missing in this is a good codification, if that's a word, of how does AbleRec, which is a park and rec entity, coexist in a senior center 125 Live? It doesn't really talk about that, and that's always been one of the issues that Paul Whitman and I have had is how do you merge the two? It went from difficulties with parents sitting with their children while there were classes being had, and now the Maple Room is free. That's great. But they're kind of an independent entity inside of 125 Live, and we're not going to solve it tonight. And I get that, and I appreciate what Mr. Campion and Keener's saying. And maybe I should have brought this up before. But going forward, I think it's really important to codify that relationship and how much autonomy, for example, does AbleRec have within that facility? Right, I'm a member, so I can bring Lizzie in there and go to the warm water pool. But AbleRec programming, AbleRec families that are there with their children while programming is going on has been a sort of a source of friction. And so I was a little disappointed to see that relationship isn't better fleshed out in this. So just going forward, I hope that in the future we can fix that up a little bit better. I think the relationship has really, really improved, and it may not be an issue anymore, but it's still a concern of mine, and I'd like to see that bulleted out at some level. Thank you.
Did you want to respond to that?
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Bransford, we do address some of the items regarding the Accessible Rec program on page 216 of the packet. It does outline a little bit more on there with relationships between the city and the Accessible Rec program. And then as well with the finishing out of that lower level space, there would be a separate entrance that would be Accessible Rec parents and guardians would be able to use to bring their children in as well. So that might be helpful.
I read it. I did. And that's great because like just sitting with your child while there's a class was in fact a big source of friction. What I'm talking about more than anything is AbleRec is a separate entity coexisting with a nonprofit, right? And I just wanted to make sure that there was some equal treatment there. And this goes a long way. I'm just throwing it. That's why I'm not squawking too loud. I'm just kind of pontificating a little.
Thanks for those comments, though. Really important as we think about the multiple uses for our community. Councilmember Palmer?
I'm going to make a motion to amend the agreement on page 8, number 5, remove the commitment for multiple years of support and support the payment of the $2022.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
I'll try to keep it simple. Let's try to make it consistent with the rest of the agencies we have. Period.
Okay, other discussion? All right, ready to vote? All in favor of Councilmember Palmer's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion fails. All right, sorry about that, Councilmember Dennis, over to you.
No, thank you. Yes, I agree with a lot of these comments about how complex this has been and how long. And it's, I just want to say thank you for getting the partners and everyone up at the table. So I've talked to a lot of people in the community, and the universal answer when I've asked about things is we need more pools in the city. You know, that's like what everyone says, life skill, life and death. We need to be able to have all our youth and adults be able to swim. But then when I talk to people at 125 Live, it's many have told me it's a home, home that they place for belonging, for mental health, for connection. So I just want to say having a contract is important. I'm a supporter of having something solidified for the 5 years. I do want to say that I like in the future it says building relationships by improved communication. I think that will hopefully help lubricate some of this friction we are having when you have articles and papers and things like that if we have more meetings. So I appreciate that. The one question I had that I guess maybe just to clarify, and I apologize if I have maybe missed it here, but one of the big concerns of users of 125 Live and the rec center is parking. I've had so many people, there's not enough parking. Is there something in the future being looked at to increase that parking, to build, to partner with so that people can utilize the facility and park there?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Dennis. We did have a congressionally directed spending request for a parking ramp located. That maybe ideal location would be where the Podine building currently is, although there are two kind of ideas. I'm trying to look for the slide to tell you what packet page that would be on for my previous presentation. So it's page 206 of the packet. So we are contemplating that. That was a part of our ask. 2 applications for funding for a parking structure, congressional directed spending, and an FTA bus and bus facility grant.
All right, thank you.
All right, any final comments, questions?
Call the question.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick hasn't had a chance to speak, so go ahead.
Thank you. Just 2 comments. Brief. Mr. Bransford, I appreciate what you're saying about an agency within another agency. I see this at the Place, which is also occupied with Boys and Girls Club and Families First. They have a pretty great model, so I don't know if folks can reach out and learn how that model works, perhaps improving what's done. And also, I would really like to see the Podine building become a cantina or a little nice restaurant, because it just looks great for something like that. So maybe the parking ramp could be where the parking lot is existing now, and then folks have a nice food spot to go to without crossing the busy Elton Hills Drive. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Let's go ahead and vote then. And just final comment, thank you so much for your hard work and for all of you for coming back to the table for those hard discussions. All right. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, everyone. And we do not have any other business items left today. So Kimberly, if you can skim us through the next few pages. Don't have any pulled consent, no CIAs, no ordinance readings, no tabled items. Does anyone have any other business for this evening? All right, hearing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Nailed it.
Recording stopped.
I missed my
said nine,
aggressive call.
and I got it almost in a second.
Is this your first council meeting?
I just realized you was going to be so intense.
We got nothing we can do about it.
Under the.
We don't have a lot of people there. But I suppose if I had my base